Approximately $3.2 million in cryptocurrency has been recovered and over $13 million in physical assets.
At 11:47 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, federal authorities executed what they are calling the most financially devastating strike against the Sinaloa Cartel's U.S. operations in modern history. Across 3 states, California, Arizona, and Texas, coordinated teams of FBI, D, ICE, and local SWAT units moved simultaneously on 47 verified Sinaloa Cartel Safehouses, seizing over $1 billion in cash, 4.5 tons of narcotics, including cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, and methamphetamine, and capturing a network so deeply embedded in American soil that federal prosecutors are calling it a shadow financial empire. The operation, codenamed Silent Fortress, was not just a raid. It was the systematic dismantling of a cartel structure that had been operating for over 8 years without significant federal intervention, protected by layers of legitimate business fronts, compromised officials, and a regional operations chief who ran the entire network from a mansion in Beverly Hills while maintaining the appearance of a successful real estate developer. What you are about to hear is not just another drug bust. This is the story of how a Mexican drug cartel built an American empire right under the nose of federal law enforcement, how they moved billions in dirty money through systems designed to catch them, and how one man coordinated it all while attending charity galas and sitting on nonprofit boards. And if you think the cash seizure was shocking, wait until you hear what they found in the encrypted servers. 4:32 a.m., downtown Los Angeles, California. The city sleeps under a blanket of marine fog that turns streetlights into soft halos. Silence fills the concrete corridors between high-rise condos and luxury apartment towers. Then, the silence breaks. 6 black Suburbans roll to a stop outside a nondescript building near the Fashion District, engines cutting simultaneously. Doors open. 32 federal agents in tactical black gear move like a coordinated machine, splitting into breach teams, overwatch positions, and rear containment units. FBI leads the entry. DIA secures the perimeter. ICE blocks every exit within 3 blocks. At exactly 4:34 a.m., the battering ram hits the reinforced steel door of Unit 12B. Flashbangs detonate. Smoke pours into a hallway lined with surveillance cameras that never had a chance to send alerts. Inside, agents find what they expected, but on a scale that stops them cold. The apartment is not a residence. It is a counting house. 8 industrial-grade money counters line the walls, still warm from recent use. Stacks of cash-filled duffel bags, suitcases, and cardboard boxes labeled with shipping company logos. On the dining room table, vacuum-sealed bricks of cocaine sit next to ledgers written in coded Spanish shorthand. In the bedroom, agents discover something that changes the entire operation. A laptop, still powered on, connected to an encrypted server showing live financial transactions routing through shell companies in Panama, the Cayman Islands, and Delaware. And in the browser history, emails to a contact listed only as El Arquitecto, the architect. At the exact same moment, 5:47 a.m. Mountain Time, Phoenix, Arizona, SWAT teams and DIA agents converge on a warehouse complex in an industrial zone near the airport. The building is registered to a logistics company that claims to handle agricultural equipment. The breach is fast and violent. Flashbangs, shouted commands, suspects hitting the ground with hands behind their heads. Inside the warehouse, agents find a sophisticated drug processing and storage facility. Rows of industrial shelving hold packaged methamphetamine, fentanyl pills stamped with cartel logos, and bundles of cocaine wrapped in cellophane. In a back office, more cash. This time, over $200 million stacked in fireproof safes in hidden compartments built into the walls. But the real discovery comes when agents pry open a locked server room. Inside, a digital nerve center. Monitors display tracking software showing truck routes across the Southwest, border crossing schedules, and GPS coordinates updated in real time. One screen shows a spreadsheet labeled Operaciones Mensuales, monthly operations. The numbers are staggering. Over $600 million moved per month through this single facility's coordinated network. The agents realize they are not looking at a warehouse. They are looking at a command center. 6:02 a.m. Central Time, Houston, Texas, near the border corridor that connects to Laredo and Brownsville. Federal agents hit 3 locations simultaneously. A luxury car dealership that sells high-end vehicles to cartel members using laundered money. A sprawling ranch property 40 minutes outside the city where tunnels were rumored to connect to cross-border smuggling routes. And a residential compound in an exclusive gated community where the regional operations chief, a man federal investigators now identify as Ricardo Salinas Vega, has been living under the identity of a successful entrepreneur named Richard Salinas. The raid on the compound is surgical. FBI hostage rescue teams move through the property room by room. Salinas Vega is taken into custody without resistance, still wearing silk pajamas, his expression showing more annoyance than fear. In his home office, agents find the motherlode: encrypted hard drives, satellite phones with contact lists containing hundreds of names, some matching known cartel members, others matching U.S. law enforcement personnel, border officials, and local politicians. Financial documents showing real estate purchases totaling over $300 million across California, Arizona, Texas, Nevada, and New Mexico. And a steel lockbox containing handwritten notes in Salinas Vega's own writing, detailing payoffs to specific individuals, shipment schedules, and contingency plans for federal interdiction. One line stands out to investigators: if the route closes, we own enough people to open another. By 9:15 a.m., the scale of what federal authorities have uncovered becomes impossible to ignore. Inside an FBI cyber forensics operations center in Quantico, Virginia, analysts work through terabytes of data pulled from the seized servers and devices. What they piece together is not just a smuggling network. It is an operational blueprint for a parallel economy. The Sinaloa Cartel, under the strategic direction of Salinas Vega, had built what prosecutors are now calling the most sophisticated money laundering and narcotics distribution infrastructure ever identified on U.S. soil. The network included over 130 shell companies, fake construction firms, sham import-export businesses, restaurant chains that reported revenue but served almost no customers, logistics companies with fleets of trucks that moved shipments across state lines under the cover of agricultural products, building materials, and furniture. Offshore accounts in 12 countries. Wire transfers disguised as consulting fees, real estate transactions, and charitable donations. Nonprofits that claimed to support immigrant services but funneled cash directly back into cartel operations, and the entire system was architected to avoid detection. Transactions were kept just under federal reporting thresholds. Cash deposits were spread across hundreds of small bank branches. Digital payments were routed through cryptocurrency exchanges and reconverted into dollars in foreign accounts before re-entering the U.S. financial system. But what makes this network different, what makes it terrifying, is the level of infiltration. Salinas Vega did not just avoid law enforcement, he compromised it. Investigators discover evidence of monthly payments to Border Patrol agents who allowed specific vehicles to pass through checkpoints without inspection. Payments to local police officers who provided advance warning of DIA surveillance operations. Payments to a deputy district attorney who delayed prosecutions and leaked grand jury information. Payments to a state legislator who pushed for budget cuts to drug task forces and argued publicly that federal enforcement was overreach and a waste of taxpayer money. And payments to a senior logistics planner within a regional transportation authority who ensured that certain truck routes were never flagged for inspection, that way stations were closed for maintenance when cartel convoys were scheduled to pass, and that GPS tracking data for those trucks was periodically corrupted or erased. This was not a cartel bribing a few corrupt cops. This was a cartel that had systematically purchased operational immunity across multiple jurisdictions. Federal prosecutors are calling it command-level collusion. One senior FBI official, speaking off the record, described it more bluntly. They built a second police force, one that worked for them. And this operation, what you have seen so far, is just the surface, because what federal investigators are about to uncover will reveal that the Sinaloa Cartel did not just infiltrate law enforcement. They redesigned it. At 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time, the U.S. Attorney General authorizes the expansion of Silent Fortress into a continental-scale eradication operation. Inside a joint command center at DIA headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, over 200 federal agents, analysts, and coordinators monitor a massive digital operations map projected across 3 screens. Red markers pulse across California, Arizona, Texas, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, and even as far east as Georgia and Florida. Each marker represents a confirmed or suspected Sinaloa Cartel asset. Safe houses, stash locations, front businesses, distribution hubs. Over the next 18 hours, more than 1,200 federal agents supported by local SWAT teams, ICE tactical units, U.S. Marshals, and even elements of the U.S. Border Patrol execute synchronized raids across 7 states. In San Diego, agents hit a beachfront property where cartel members stored bulk cash in hidden rooms built beneath the garage. In Las Vegas, a nightclub operating as a money exchange point is shut down, and agents seize over $40 million hidden in the building's vac system. In Albuquerque, a trucking company with contracts to transport goods for legitimate retailers is revealed as a cartel logistics front. Agents discover methamphetamine concealed in false compartments built into shipping pallets. In El Paso, a residential neighborhood near the border yields 5 separate stash houses, each holding over $10 million in cash and hundreds of kilograms of cocaine and fentanyl. In Dallas, agents raid a luxury real estate firm that sold high-value properties to cartel associates using laundered money funneled through offshore LLCs. The operation is relentless. Agents move from target to target with precision, using intelligence gathered from the initial raids to chain together arrests and seizures. Helicopters circle above. Armored vehicles block streets. News helicopters capture footage of suspects being let out in handcuffs, duffel bags of cash being loaded into federal evidence trucks, and bundles of narcotics stacked on tarps for documentation. By the time the sun sets on the second day of the operation, federal authorities have seized over $1 billion in cash, 4.5 tons of cocaine, 3 tons of methamphetamine, 900 kilograms of heroin, and over 2.1 million fentanyl pills. They have arrested 143 individuals, including 37 suspected cartel members, 42 employees of front businesses, 18 corrupt officials or law enforcement personnel, and 46 financial facilitators and money launderers. And they have dismantled a network that federal prosecutors estimate was generating over $7 billion per year in revenue. One FBI official, standing in front of seized cash stacked floor to ceiling in a federal evidence warehouse, tells reporters that the cartel took more damage in 48 hours than it had absorbed in the previous decade. But the story does not end with arrests and seizures. The deeper investigators dig into the seized files, the clearer the picture becomes. And the picture is worse than anyone imagined. Salinas Vega was not just running a smuggling operation. He was running a long-term strategic plan to entrench Sinaloa cartel operations so deeply into the American economy that removing them would be nearly impossible. Analysts discover internal cartel documents outlining a 5-phase expansion strategy. Phase 1 was establishing secure distribution routes using existing smuggling corridors along the southern border. Phase 2 was building financial infrastructure through shell companies and real estate investments to launder bulk cash and create legitimate appearing revenue streams. Phase 3 was compromising law enforcement and political figures to create protective layers around cartel operations. Phase 4, the phase they were currently in, was regional consolidation, turning California, Arizona, and Texas into operational fortresses where the cartel controlled enough legitimate businesses, owned enough properties, and had enough people on payroll that they could operate in plain sight. Phase 5, not yet fully implemented, was described in the documents as institutional integration. The goal was to make cartel money so embedded in local economies through investments in construction, hospitality, agriculture, and logistics that any attempt to remove it would cause economic disruption that politicians and business leaders would resist. One chilling line from Salinas Vega's own notes, recovered from his compound, reads, "When they need us more than they hate us, we have won." Federal investigators also uncover evidence that Salinas Vega maintained a direct communication line with high-level Sinaloa Cartel leadership in Mexico, receiving strategic directives and reporting on operational progress. Encrypted messages show him requesting additional funding for specific bribes, proposing new smuggling methods using commercial shipping containers routed through West Coast ports, and even discussing contingency plans in case of federal interdiction. One message, sent 3 months before the raids, reads, "Expand Arizona operations." Phoenix corridor is secure. Increase monthly volume by 30%. Another message discusses the purchase of a fleet of refrigerated trucks to transport fentanyl disguised as frozen food shipments. And a third message, sent just 2 weeks before the raids, suggests that Salinas Vega had been warned by a compromised source that federal agencies were increasing surveillance. His response was chilling in its confidence: "We have enough coverage." Proceed as planned. The revelation that law enforcement itself had been penetrated so deeply sends shockwaves through federal and state agencies. Internal affairs divisions launch investigations into dozens of officers, agents, and officials. Lie detector tests are administered. Financial records are audited. Phone logs and email accounts are subpoenaed. And the results are devastating. In California, 8 law enforcement personnel are placed on administrative leave pending criminal charges. In Arizona, a senior Border Patrol supervisor is arrested after investigators discover he received over $200,000 in cash payments over 3 years in exchange for allowing specific vehicles to bypass inspection. In Texas, a county sheriff's deputy and a state transportation official are both charged with conspiracy after evidence shows they coordinated to ensure certain truck routes were never inspected. And in Nevada, a city councilman who had publicly advocated for reduced enforcement of immigration and drug laws is revealed to have received campaign donations funneled through cartel-controlled businesses. For honest officers and agents who spent years trying to fight the cartels, the betrayal is personal. One DEA agent, speaking anonymously, says it felt like fighting a war where half your own side was secretly working for the enemy. Another FBI agent describes the moment they arrested a colleague as the worst day of his career, worse than any raid, worse than any shootout, because it meant the system he believed in had been corrupted from the inside. Federal authorities make it clear that the badge will be rebuilt from the ground up. That trust will be earned back one case at a time, and that every officer, every agent, every official will now operate under heightened scrutiny until the rot is completely removed. But even as arrests continue and evidence mounts, federal investigators realize the network extended beyond just the Southwest. Financial records show that Sinaloa cartel money, laundered through Salinas Vega's infrastructure, had been invested in properties and businesses as far east as Atlanta, Miami, and Charlotte. Trucking routes connected Phoenix and Houston to distribution hubs in Oklahoma City, Kansas City, and St. Louis. Shell companies registered in Delaware and Nevada owned stakes in restaurants, car washes, and construction firms that operated in over 20 states. The cartel had not just infiltrated 3 states. It had built a nationwide financial web, using the U.S. economy itself as a shield. And the most disturbing realization comes when analysts calculate the volume of drugs that move through this network at peak efficiency. Over 15 tons of narcotics per month. Enough fentanyl to kill millions. Enough cocaine and methamphetamine to supply every major city west of the Mississippi. And all of it moved with a level of operational security that rivaled legitimate corporations, complete with logistics software, encrypted communications, and contingency planning that anticipated law enforcement actions. Federal prosecutors, preparing the case against Salinas Vega and his network, describe what they uncovered as something closer to a corporate takeover than a traditional criminal enterprise. The Sinaloa Cartel, operating through Salinas Vega's leadership, had essentially turned drug trafficking into a business model. Complete with strategic planning, market analysis, risk management, and long-term growth projections, they diversified their revenue streams. They reinvested profits into infrastructure. They built redundancy into every operation so that losing one route or one safe house would not cripple the network. And they understood that the key to longevity was not violence or intimidation, although they used both when necessary, but integration. Make yourself indispensable. Make your money invisible. Make your operations look legitimate. And compromise the people whose job it is to stop you. One federal prosecutor, reviewing the evidence, makes a statement that captures the entire operation. This was not a drug cartel hiding in the shadows. This was a drug cartel that bought a seat at the table, and they almost made it permanent. As the final pieces of the investigation come together, federal authorities make it clear that Silent Fortress is not over. The raids, the arrests, the seizures, those were just the beginning. Now comes the work of dismantling the financial networks, seizing properties, freezing accounts, and prosecuting everyone involved. It will take years. It will involve cooperation with international law enforcement agencies in Mexico, Panama, the Cayman Islands, and Switzerland. It will require forensic accountants to trace money through dozens of shell companies and offshore accounts. And it will demand that law enforcement agencies at every level examine their own personnel, their own procedures, and their own vulnerabilities. Because the lesson of Silent Fortress is not that cartels are powerful. It is that they are patient. They are strategic. And they understand that power does not always require violence. Sometimes it just requires silence and ambition. Sometimes it just requires finding the people who are willing to look the other way for the right price. The cost of what the Sinaloa Cartel built is measured in more than dollars and drugs. It is measured in lives. Families destroyed by fentanyl overdoses. Neighborhoods turned into open-air drug markets. Young people recruited into trafficking networks and criminal enterprises. Communities where trust in law enforcement has been shattered because the badge was for sale. And a system that was supposed to protect people, but was instead turned into a tool for profit and exploitation. Federal authorities are calling this operation a victory, and in many ways it is. Over $1 billion seized, tons of narcotics taken off the streets, a network that took years to build, dismantled in days. But the victory comes with a warning. Because if one man could build this much, could compromise this many people, could embed a drug cartel this deeply into American society, then the question is not whether it can happen again. The question is whether it is already happening somewhere else.